Chief, how you doing?
I am well, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Are you in South Korea right now? So do you guys have three homes basically? Are you in Aroha Valley and then you're in,
Yeah,
Ethiopia or somewhere in Africa and then you're in South Korea?
Korea. Yeah, we're crazy. That's yes.
Hi, I'm Topaz Adizes, and I'm the founder of the Emmy Award-winning series The And. The And has been an incredible journey for the past 12 years. We've brought in over 1,250 pairs to have incredible conversations. Through this work, I've had the privilege of witnessing the bold and the beautiful and the heart-wrenching, the conversations that reveal us. And what I've learned through these incredible experiences is that life shapes us. Now I'm ready to share these learnings and reflections here with you to dive deeper. We're going to be speaking to people I find incredible. I'm going to be asking them questions that reveal their life's journey. In today's episode, I'll be speaking to Yoseph Ayele, an Ethiopian-born entrepreneur and visionary who has spent his life reimagining how people, capital, and ideas move across borders. As the founder of LAVA, he invests in startups shaping Africa's financial and trust infrastructure. And through Magma, he develops the next generation of purpose-driven founders and engineers. Before that, he co-founded and led New Zealand's Edmund Hillary Fellowship and Global Impact Visa, pioneering a new model for global migration and innovation. Yoseph's journey from Addis Ababa to Silicon Valley to Wellington reveals a mind devoted to bridging worlds and a heart committed to unlocking human potential at scale.
What is the thing that you're manifesting right now?
I'm obsessed with volcanoes and volcano
Are you really?
themes. Yeah,
Really?
I
Well,
know
where's
what
the
I would
picture?
like.
I don't see a picture of a volcano behind you. That's like
I'm on
required.
Airbnb.
Oh, you are? Okay. Got it.
Yeah, but good point. Next time I'll search for lava-themed Airbnb. They should definitely have. So I've got two projects. One is Magma, and the other one is Lava. But at the essence of it, I'm obsessed with talent, and I find incredible talent across Africa in terms of founder, builder, developer, like this creation energy. It is so potent and very powerful, just like a volcano, right? Just like lava. It is very strong, and it is very alive, deep in the culture and the essence, and also where the continent is at in its quote unquote development phase. Yeah, on a personal level, like I see part of myself in many others, and I see what people are trying to do, what they're trying to create for themselves and for hundreds of millions of people. And it is real. Like things that are being built there are very real, that touch people's lives, that are used by like everyday people and businesses, institutions, and so on. And the things that tend to be like intellectual conversations or explorations in the Western world are very practical and real and very pragmatic in the African market. And man, that's where people are at. Like that's where size is. The rest of the world is declining in population and age. Where I'm in Korea right now, is one of the fastest declining populations. The US is, Europe is, the world is aging, and all the young people are in Africa, right? And so, yeah, that's where my heart and passion is, and it's manifested in like a fund that I use to back and invest in early stage startups that are building core financial and trust infrastructures, and we run a Y Combinator style founder program that has got like elements of EHF and fellowship inside of it to basically coordinate the smartest people in terms of what they're working towards. But very selfishly, it's just a great context and platform to go find the most driven, talented, long-term builders and just work with them in the trenches together.
When you say I love talent, I feel it. Like when you say you love talent.
Yeah.
I also want to ask you a question, which is, because I know you, I've spent time in your family. I feel like there's an expectation from them in terms of returning to the place of your birth. So how much is it that, and how much is it talent, or is it both about returning to Africa? and doing work there?
There's actually no expectation from them. And the one thing...
Has that always been the case, or is that new?
Yeah. Well, interesting. There are things that they've done that you could call expectation. But when I was 2 years old or a little younger than that, my mom had a whole ceremony with elders from church, where she literally handed me over to God and said, "You're not mine. You belong to God.
And
you're here to fulfill..."
You don't remember that? She tells you this.
I have pictures. Yeah, I have pictures. And she's told me that since the day I have memory that I can pull from. And she said that she's the caretaker, but not the owner. She's always said that there's a purpose of why I'm here. That's for me to find. She's got her own dreams, her own visions, but she's never imposed any of that.
Wow.
And yeah.
So maybe what I was seeing was more of the awareness of how capable you are.
What do you mean?
Like, what I misunderstood as expectations was more appreciating and seeing how capable you are. If this person is in the hands of God and their destiny is theirs, and they're very capable, well, we're going to see great things then.
What drew me over back to where I come from is that's where my heart was calling me, and I had to respond. Mm-hmm. And it was also where I find the highest leverage use of my time, energy, resources, relationships, and networks is. And it's where I found a work that feeds my soul. It's interesting, like for a very long period of time, I deceived myself that I was doing this for others, or I'm trying to create impact in the world, or I'm going to change this and that. And like, and there's a huge element of truth in that, is that, there's an inherent desire to be in relationship with others, to have a positive value and impact in others. But in doing so, I had completely not neglected, but also given myself the illusion that I'm not doing any of that for myself. Mm-hmm. And I went through this phase of actually just seeing so much of what I do and why I do it to serve myself, and that it's okay. It's
was this?
Not a bad thing.
When was this process?
2020 onwards, I'd say, for a couple of years. It was right after I stepped down from my role at EHF and just took some time off. I spent a lot of time and energy. I called it unloading, pretty much removing any expectation the world had on for me, or any type of commitment. I went through a phase of zero commitment to nobody. Like, I don't owe anyone anything. And the only thing I have is just myself. I was very lucky to be in a position to do that. And my wife was very supportive of that. And just see what bubbled up, and go really deep into the very uncomfortable places herself, which is very hard to do. But I loved it, right? And so, like, constantly putting that up as a priority of actually, like, I got to do things that feed me, because if I'm not fed, then I can't do anything for others, right? And have you read the 4 Agreements?
20 years ago.
Yeah.
So tell me, remind me, what's in it?
One of the agreements is don't take anything personally, because it's not about you. It's about themselves, which is like, oh, therefore anything that I say or do is actually about me. So a lot of roads lead back to me, right? It's like, well, let me not avoid the me in all the equations. Let me go back to that. Yeah. So the work here feeds me, and we're like in a very symbiotic relationship.
Tell me about what is it about finding talent that gives you so much energy? Like, I remember when I was editing films, director, I'd be in the edit room with the editor, and we'd be trying to crack the language of the movie or trying to get the scene to come alive. And then there'd be a moment where it worked. All of a sudden, the scene became alive. That's a moment when I know I love what I do. What's the moment where you know you love what you do in terms of finding talent? And what does talent mean?
I see talent as this innate capacities and abilities that exist within us that we actively cultivate and is expressed in things that we do. A bottle that never fills up or that is like completely limitless, right? And it is like our inner capacity to manifest things in this world, to create things, to build, as well as to destroy, right? There's all of that kind of exists within us. And I see it as energy actually that moves through us. That is not even from us. That, and if you want to kind of like dig deeper, it moves through us. And when we, as the vessels, allow it to move, then magic happens. If I make it about me, how I look to you, and all just my little quirks and kinks and whatever, then I actually bottleneck that energy that is actually moving through, right? And like my lived life and experience and crucibles and all those things feed into the way that I see the world, the way that I show up, right? And then I use all the like faculties that I've been gifted since the day I was born to create and manifest in this short little blip of time that I exist out here.
So wait. Let me play back. So is talent the ability to allow that energy to flow through you to then utilize some of that energy into physical reality? You know, what was it? It was like Prince used to say, like, whenever I got that song in my head, I knew that I had to get it, because if I didn't, it would just float over to Michael Jackson's house. You know, like the idea wasn't coming from him. It was coming through him, like, and he was there to receive it like an antenna was receiving a signal. It was the talent, the ability to receive the signal, or is it to be able to do something with the signal, to even hear the signal? What is it for you? And or is it a culmination of everything that's happened in someone's life that puts them in a position to receive a certain signal and then manifest it in a certain way?
I think it's all the above. I think it is, first of all, like having a deeper self-awareness and understanding of all that I have been gifted. And that comes with life experiences, perspectives, relationships, and all these are sort of toolkits that I have. The better I understand it, then the better I can use those perspectives, but also not be blinded by my blind spots, right? And then all these energies move, and like observing and listening, and also just observing what wants to happen in the world, and then channeling it out in a way that is manifested out there. So it's not just like me meditating, sitting down and just hoping for some magic to happen. It is actually a very proactive, intentional way of just letting it out into the world with how I know how to package it and build it. So for the musician you mentioned, it's through music, it's through art, it's through songs, right? For different people, it can be through research, through science, or for some it's like poetry, for some it's cooking. It could be whatever way it is, right? But it's an art. It's a form of expression, and it's not just one expression. It is the process of expressing, which is beautiful. Like one amazing, talented guy from Nigeria I've been working with, he calls it sort of mastery. He's got an obsession with mastery, which is the process of becoming really good and getting really intimate that never has a destination, but it's a journey. It's got sort of like checkpoints, and it's got places where you can see, this is expression 77 or expression 1062. The process of mastering something just never ends. It's an ongoing journey.
What was the last time you got high off of finding talent? Like, what was the last time you just said, fucking yeah, I love this shit. I love what I do?
Yeah, end of March, I hosted a program in Kenya, part of Magma, which is a founder residency. We had 25 founders, developers, researchers from many African countries come together in Kenya in sort of middle of nowhere location for 2 weeks as a residency. And yeah, and just some of the people that were there in terms of their hunger to learn, their hunger to grow, and shared some like very intimate stories of like health and personal challenges that they kind of went through. And at the same time, one of the guys had taught himself maths, but not just maths, like extremely difficult cryptography using maths. It was just so good what he was producing and putting out into the world. His commitment to his own growth and development, and then teaching others the same set of skills and the same mindset for learning. It's called zero knowledge technology. By folks using zero knowledge proofs, we can advance knowledge in this space out of a tiny room in the middle of Lagos, where we are kind of getting together and learning this stuff from scratch by ourselves and dealing with a lot of personal medical challenges and all the limitations that you have based on your physical location. Middle of Lagos is not center of Silicon Valley or Stanford or Harvard or whatever, right? And I love that. I love that because he's an underdog in this world. And an underdog to me is someone who is overlooked by the whole society, or does not have the external packaging that we have traditionally created of what is a source of talent or a source of value. It does not have sort of the external validation. And as a chip on his shoulder, he's got to prove something to the world, not for the sake of proving, but because just by his sheer existence, the world does not believe in him. Right. And seeing that and being in the same space with him and his other collaborators was extremely inspiring. It just brought tears to my eyes. And at the same time, how far he's thinking and how he's able to invest in himself and in others. How both big, but also how far he's thinking.
What do you mean by far? You mean in the future? Like the run-on effects?
In the future. If let's say if your parents make $100 a month and you now have capacity to make $3,000 a month in an environment where that's amazing, and you're like, actually, I can do that, but I'd rather not just steal my time for money. I'm going to go invest in myself to keep learning by bringing down my cost as low as possible and living in a room with 5 other people, so that I can invest in myself for what I could help create in the future. And I don't want to do that just by myself. I want to train a bunch of others so we build a very strong collective of folks who can create much bigger things than what I can create on my own.
Wow.
No, I'm going to bypass the flashy little things others have and invest into the future.
You know, 2 things come up for me when you say that. First is I spent a month in northern Turkana of Kenya, just south of the border with Somalia, in the refugee camp there, where we're teaching, refugees from all over, Congo, Somalia, Ethiopia, how to make films to tell their stories. My God, how much did I learn about my ignorance? That like you're bored in life and you get like a deck from the cards and it's a random dealing. And some get like a king. You're like, happen to be a white male born in the U.S. to a wealthy family. And I mean, that's king. Why? Because you have all these luxury and resources available that are almost offered to you. And then maybe you're born somewhere else, but you don't have the resources. It's just like the worst card you're dealt. And it's simply like the dealing of cards of life. It's a reflection of the systematic inequalities that are available to people. But I remember teaching one kid and I said, well, should we write this down? And he's like, oh, okay, yeah. And then he had to leave and he took him 15, 20 minutes to find a pencil to write it down. Talking about like you don't have the resources for the simple things. When you tell your story about how you had to get $75 to apply to Harvard, like it's not just you're just going to get $75 applied. It's like, how am I even going to get to the payment structure system to make the payment on a credit card? You had to find a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I hope I'm not saying anything. I'm sure I'm saying something that's ignorant that I might be missing. But my experience of spending time there was, it's definitely unequal ground in terms of access to resources. And where one person can instantly just, I'll grab a pencil and write notes and use that to educate myself. It's like, well, what about even just finding the pencil? Like some places you don't even have the pencil.
Can I challenge a bunch of things
please,
there?
dude. Of course, because I'm definitely ignorant. Yeah. Feed me.
It's actually not about ignorance, but one thing that I have decided to lean into more is the space of contradictions. And I'm going to say contradictory things right now.
Great.
Because, yes, 100% agree with you around the level of inequality for access to resources, to tools and all of that exists in the world. And it's so pronounced across Africa. Like, every time I'm spending and I take my wallet out and I pull like a bill, or now it's multiple bills to do a very small thing. And I know I used to see those bills as a kid, and I know how rare it was when I was growing up for me to touch and hold on to that, and how much my family has gone through just to get one of those pieces. And now I go to a restaurant and just pull 10 or 20 of those and pay for one dish. I still cannot help see the huge difference, and it's so pronounced, the amount of inequality, the haves and the have-nots. It reminds me who I am and where I come from and what's important, but it doesn't stop me from living the life that I have, and also reminds me what needs to be done. On the other side, I have also learned the hard way that creating a hierarchy of what we think prosperity is, or having or not having is. And I have learned to challenge that. And I find so many in the world fall in that trap. And I've been in that trap for a long time, thinking, oh, from the outside, you don't look like you have this, therefore let me provide it to you, or you need to be here, right? Sort of, we tend to create a very linear line of haves and have-nots, like where in fact, like, you went there to, help people learn how to tell their stories. Well, I'll tell you, like, both in East and West Africa, the best storytelling capability in the world exists there. And not just that, like, you can pull a random person off the street and you'll probably get the most dynamic, the most interesting, the most elaborate types of stories that can be turned into a movie. There's a bit of generalization there. But yeah, I've stopped looking at the world through hierarchies.
Yeah, and I hope I wasn't... Look, when you say that story... Well, when you say that, it makes me think of this story. I made a film in a Zambian farming community, 4 or 5 hours outside of, was it Lusaka, the capital of Zambia? And I made it in my style where I'm working with this family who's never acted before, but I'm creating an environment in which they're telling their own story. I'm just filming it. We're only there for a week. And in the afternoons, the neighboring farmers would get together in the meadow, and all the kids would play, and the women would talk around the fire, and the men would talk, and the sun was setting, and me and my crew, it was 6 of us, 7 of us, and we're sitting there, and we're like, my God, this is heaven, man. This is heaven. Like they have on many, Western levels, they have so little. The parents both had HIV, subsistent farmers, not always have access to water, clean water, definitely not. If you asked me what's the happiest, closest place to heaven I would say that spot and a sunrise in the Saharan desert where there's nobody around. Like to me, those are the two closest places to heaven I've ever been, where I just could feel it in the joy. Like it's not, the criteria is not having all the things that some people have. There's another criteria, which might be said about fulfillment. It's about feeling a sense of community, a sense of value offering to other people in your community in whatever way that is. I don't know, but I'm with you.
One of the craziest things that happened to me was when I went to college in the US, and I was like this Ethiopian kid who got a full ride to go study at Harvard. My family, and God bless them, they were missionaries, right? And so they were not living life for money. And so I couldn't even afford a flight. I had to ask Ethiopian Airlines to give me a free flight to Boston. And they did, which is amazing, and had to kind of tell them how amazing of an investment in the country and all of that is. And this East African guy shows up in Boston, crazy cold, East Coast America. It's an elite school. It's got, very diverse set of folks and everything. I started making friends with so many types of people, and including people who come from immense amount of wealth and like 5th, 6th generation Harvard grads or students. And seeing how lonely many of my friends were, seeing where the pressure comes from, and the things that they could not even communicate in the world because they're like, what are you talking about? That you're a Harvard kid, you're a spoiled brat, you grew up with silver spoon in your mouth, you've had everything provided to you, you've got zero excuse to be sad or upset, right? Including like some close friends who ended up sadly taking their lives because it was a lot to carry. And I find myself feeling more sorry and sad for a number of those types of friends than this poster image that people have of folks from Ethiopia, of poverty and all of that.
Yeah.
And that really shifted my worldview of hierarchies that we kind of assume, because happiness is happiness wherever you are. Sadness is sadness wherever you are, right? We're born naked, we'll die naked. What happens in between is this experiment of humanity, the hierarchy that we impose in societies with a big spoon of salt, because there's just a lot more behind it.
So you might get the Harvard 5th generation, but who says that you feel a sense of fulfillment or self-worth or connection or community? Maybe you get access to less resources, but you get incredible access to a sense of community. The impetus of what environment I put my children in. What are the values that they're going to be surrounded by? Right? And what are the values of the families that our kids are playing with my kids? And how can I offer them the resources that are not just physical resources or knowledge-based resources, but also value-based or fulfillment-based resources, And one of them is time.
I mean, it's beautiful to have the option to choose, right? And that's
it's a luxury.
It's a luxury. It's a privilege.
I feel like it's a luxury.
It's a privilege. We're gifted. Beautiful. And sometimes life forces us to do that as well, right? We can't design the whole world around us. All what we can do is just react to the realities. We live in this time of the internet, where you can do that, which is also another beautiful luxury that we find ourselves in. It's just in the last 20 or so years when all of this has been possible, right?
Where does the joy of looking for talent come from?
It takes me back to my own life. When I was a kid, the one thing I was very blessed by is the love of parents. And the same way you don't get to pick the cards you dealt with, you just dealt with it. And I got very lucky to have parents who poured so much love and energy. And I came to this world in a time of crisis. After the famine in Ethiopia that put us on the map everywhere, there was a civil war. It was so clear, even when I was like 3, 4, I could still remember very vividly. People just try to survive. When the war broke out in Addis, we were sleeping on the floor just to avoid bullets, right, that were being shot into the walls. And there was just a lot of poverty and depression. The environment where I grew up in was where even some of my extended family members, we all lived in one big compound, like 25 or so people shared one toilet amongst everyone. Like more than half of the people there were addicted to drugs. The rest were unemployed, didn't have any source of income. We just sit down, and I can't blame them or cast any of that. But that was the reality, right? And my parents do not just love me, but they spent a lot of time talking to me and talking with me, because a lot of parents can talk at kids or tell them what to do, but they treated me as an adult. They had to at that phase, because they couldn't hide the reality of the world from me at a very young age. And so they had to create the context and contextualization for me to learn what's going on, but also create the shelter so I can be who I could be, instead of defaulting for what was happening there. My dad is a great storyteller. You've met him. He's very animated and very real. And he's been through so much in his earlier life. He'd been in lots of different types of trouble, had issues with drugs, rebelled against his family, didn't have the love of his dad, more than 10 siblings, and all of that, right? So his life could have gone in 100 different directions. So he would sit me down and tell me, literally, like, as a 6, 7-year-old kid, of all the things that he did and what that led him to.
Wow.
Which you'd say, like, that's a lot of intensity. What he'd say at the end is, Yoseph, you can choose to do all those things, or you can choose a different path, but it's ultimately your choice. And that was very, very powerful. And that's kind of going back to, they never told me what to do, or they didn't have expectations of me. They did internally, but how it kind of came out was by true honesty. Or when I kind of complained, Mom, we don't have a TV and our neighbors have TV and I want to watch TV. And she's like, oh, okay. She walked me on the streets and showed me all the kids who live on the streets. And there were tons of kids living on the streets with no food, amputated, and all of that. Very, very sad reality. And she'd sit me down and tell me, like, these kids had family, had parents, but they've lost them because of this and this and this, right? And we have this, and we're putting everything that we have for you to go to school, for you to have this and that, because you're here to be a solution for that. Was how she turned my ask for TV as a little
But she would
kid.
say, you are here for a solution to that.
Yeah, you're here to bring solutions to that.
You could say that's an indelible mark as a kid. And you look around, you're like, okay, I got that. I can do that.
Yeah.
In essence, you're doing it now.
The easy thing is to fall in the trap of feeling like a victim.
Yeah.
Especially over the last 10, 15 years. And how the world has gone. Like feeling like a victim is the easiest thing for us to kind of pull from a shelf and hold on to, right? And I feel extremely fortunate that my parents taught me. Like this is one story I think that I might have written for you that my dad would tell me as a kid, and this is actually my Harvard College application essay.
Really?
That I remember. Yeah.
Nice.
He'd tell me the story of two mice fall in a jar of milk. One drowns, gives up, and dies, because what happens is you're in liquid, you drown, and that's what happens. The other mouse struggled so hard for so long that it turned the milk into butter, into solid ground, and it walked out. It's like, you are the second mouse, Yoseph. And I love that. It stuck with me because you're dealt with a deck of cards. Yes. What defines you is what you do with that.
Yeah.
And that story and that type of sort of mentorship was so critical to me, because my whole world was not even milk. It was like a jar of rotten water, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, you had to turn your problem, not go find something else. Like you got to face it. And then you got to turn it into walking ground and walk out of it. So it's not avoidance, or it's not like, oh, this is where I am, therefore I'm going to let it go. And sometimes some people might have to, but for me, it's like, no, I'm going to turn the problem into my walking ground and walk out of it. Right. And so, and that never, and so I never allowed myself to ever feel like a victim. Even if the world can see it like that, in whatever shape or form. And talent, to me, coming back to that, is regardless of what cards you've been dealt with, regardless of what context or position you have, you use it and you turn it into that channel that drives that energy through you to create magic in the world that you alone could not have done by yourself, right? And then you rinse, repeat, and you keep creating value in the world in all shapes and forms and sizes in that way.
Let's double click on that. You said what you yourself could not have done yourself, what you could not have created yourself. What do you mean by that?
We're getting into a very interesting field here, because I believe in greater forces, but not religious or spiritual. Yeah. I feel like all of us have innate force inside of us, and in the universe, in the realm, that is being expressed in all possible ways. And we are vessels for that energy to be channeled through us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what I mean, what I cannot do by myself, it's sort of like, if I feel like I know everything, I have everything, and I'm going to design the world in the way that I, capital I, Yosef, sitting in front of here, do to just serve myself, then that's just my creation. It's my work. I'm not in relationship with the world. I'm not in relationship with the universe. That's what I mean by myself. Yeah. But if I'm in a relationship with the world, if I'm in a relationship with the universe, with those around me, then I'm spending a lot of my time paying attention, listening, observing, asking, seeing what wants to happen in this moment.
Right.
And what are the faculties that I have, that I've been given? And how can I best show up here?
in this
It
moment?
could be making dinner for the people that are here. It could be building a company. It could be having a heart-to-heart open conversation. It could manifest in so many different ways.
So instead of asking like, how do I make what I think is best happening here? You ask, what is wanting to manifest itself in this moment, and how can I serve that?
Exactly.
How can I serve that? Like, oh, this moment is not about me telling people the talent here. This moment is actually about this person sharing their story to inspire others. Maybe the thing I can do is make the tea.
Exactly.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, man, I got this. What is this the one? Life is the master teacher. Life is the master. Focus on the energy, and are you facilitating that energy and being of service to the energy? Because that energy wants to get somewhere and that will work out. But you trying to control it, your own energy is not supporting the flow of the river.
Mm-hmm. This is actually very real in business as well. And it actually is something that my business partner and I use when we're making investment decisions in startups. One of our core principles is we call it truth seeking. So seeking truth, trying to get in this endless quest of trying to find what is truly happening. Why is it? In order to actually build a successful venture or deploy capital into projects that are going to create immense value and impact in the world. And very practically, how that manifests itself is, and this is actually a very important piece of advice that I received from super randomly from Peter Thiel many years ago when I was getting started with EHF is he said, the best founders are not trying to prove you that they're right. They're trying to disprove their own thesis.
They're trying to disprove their own thesis.
They're trying to disprove their own thesis. So it's not trying to keep saying, like, let me convince you in 100 ways why I'm right. It's like, yeah, there's a part of selling that you got to do. But truthfully, what you're spending your time, what you should be spending your time doing is trying to find, here's the hypothesis that I have. And here's the thesis of like what role I will play to get into this version of reality. Now, let me find reasons why that won't be true.
Wow.
Because in doing that, you're actually seeking truth. You're seeking what is truly happening. What am I missing? What am I not privy to? Right? Because most times we just believe our own bullshit. And that's what gets us in trouble all the time. And so the types of founders and builders that I find myself being attracted to are those who are trying to find what is really happening and then try to understand what the market truly wants and understand what they're good at, what they're not good at, where the product will fit, and then make the best judgment to build the right thing at the right time, hopefully. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't work, they've learned something really valuable and meaningful around it. If you're just running around as a bulldozer and think that you can align the whole of the world and reality around you, some will be successful, but like it's hard to make a bet on that. Right. So I think that space of listening of what wants to happen and then what's my role in this is a very important trait, even in business.
It also requires some more humility. Do you think? It requires, which is something when we're younger and we're trying to prove ourselves, especially if we're super ambitious. Generally, it's the ego that's driving the ambition. It's the ego that's driving that kind of, no? I mean, totally. I know it did me. No? For me, it did. For me, it was my ego of my low self-esteem. And, that was driving the ego. And that's why for many years, I was banging my head against the wall. Was there a part in your earlier years, in your 20s, and that you were driven by something else than what you are now? An understanding of allowing things to happen? Or have you always been in that space?
In my teenage years, I fell into traps that many teenagers do. Just to kind of give some context, I was in Kenya at a boarding school. My dad had to beg the headmaster to take me. We drove 15 hours from Mwanza in Tanzania to this school, sat in the headmaster's office for like 2 hours, and my dad just like making a shitload of promises of what his son is going to do for the school if the school invests in him. Like, it's the most intense setting to be in. And then my dad just told the headmaster, I'm leaving him with you. And he left. So basically, it's ballsy, right? And I'm giving you that context of like, how I got into that school, which was ridiculously expensive for us and all of that. But then teenagers do what teenagers do. I was on an art scholarship, and I was getting C's in art. Right. I was doing troublesome things, but not getting in trouble. So I thought I was outsmarting the system.
Right. Okay.
And then you get cocky, right? But I had this inflated sense of myself being in that place because I was like really good at maths and all of that. At the end of the year, just last year before completing, I went to the headmaster. His name is Mr. Bentley. I said, Mr. Bentley, so I'd like to apply to Oxford. And he's like, no, what? And, he's very like smug face, but I love he's very direct. And he sat me down and is like, do you remember when your father sat on that chair and told me all of those things? You're arrogant. You're an arrogant piece. And he listed all the things that I was doing that I thought I was hidden from him. Right? He had no clue or all that. I thought I was outsmarting the system, but he knew everything. And he just gave me the biggest slap in the face.
Physically or just verbally?
No, not physically, just verbally, but just telling me that I was arrogant. Like, he just popped my big bubble. And I cried. I went away and like, how could he think that? And because I had the sense of who I was, and then there was how I was behaving. And there was a huge gap in difference. And the sense of who I was like a big ass bubble. And actually who I was like this prick. And that was probably the most defining moment that made me change my entire direction. That was a beautiful intervention that I needed. And I'm so grateful to him for that.
Why? Because he burst your bubble.
It burst my bubble and actually reminded me that I got to do the work. And that was an important turning point. Like, okay, like I want to prove you wrong, but also it was more like I want to prove myself that I am worthy, that I am capable, and that I can do all the things that I'm not the person he's saying that I am. It just touched a very, very, very sensitive part of self-image. All of it is ego, right? And I wouldn't say like ego came, ego left. Like, ego is always there. It's like awareness of it, right? And it's because of that, honestly, that I am where I am today. If he hadn't done that, I would probably coasted thinking that I am something else, and not taken life serious. It's not even academics or whatever. It's actually like life orientation and how I keep manifesting in this world.
Did you go back? Like, your father promised that you would do certain things with this investment in you. Do you remember what he said, and have you gone back to do those things, or would you ever, or what's the story there?
Like, I don't remember the promises my dad made.
Have you asked him? He's like,
I probably would be the one to remember that now. But I mean, the essence is like he'll put your school on the map. He'll make you guys proud, right?
Yeah. The reason I ask that is because I will do things that will impact people further down the line that I will never meet and that I will never know. And so your father, taking that and saying, this young man will be here and like I'm leaving and he's here and he will return it. And whether you directly return it one for one is not as important as the fact that there's a giving back. It's like a sustainability. It's like a recycling. What goes around comes around, and that seems to be part of your story, your life story.
Yeah, crazy that you say it now that we spend more time in Kenya than even Ethiopia. So there you have it. That's where we do our work. But
what's the first thought that ran across your mind when you realized that Songi was pregnant? Do you remember the moment?
Yeah, so this is our second pregnancy. We had a miscarriage a couple of years ago, which was painful more for her. I think it didn't hit me hard that we were going to be parents, and I've had a lot of challenges internally around the idea of bringing children. Like, I really want to, and that's why her and I are together. Like, that was the first conversation her and I had, longer than half an hour, is actually about both our desires to have children. Right. And that has been consistent. But when it came to the reality of it, I've always had cold feet of fear and anxiety around it, both from like immense amount of responsibility, because I hold like crazy high expectations for myself around it. But on the other side, also, like, I've loved my freedom of packing my bags, carry on, jumping across the ocean to the other side, and like that is it's more in my head, right? Because I think and I overthink, and so I was overthinking a lot of that. The second pregnancy that we have, I feel I was so much more ready energetically, and when we found out, I was like, oh wow, that's beautiful. But I was not getting emotionally attached or connected, because you don't know what you don't know.
Right. Yeah.
And like, it is this like last ultrasound that we had, where you actually see fingers and hands and head and like legs, and just like a piece that's moving. And even when the doctors say like the baby is moving but not in the direction that we wanted to, I'm like, okay, it's real. Like, a personality was already born independent of me, right? And
we had our first miscarriage, and I mean, it prepared us. That first solar prepared us. There was a lot of conversations that, and my son, he knows about that. He knows about the first soul that is not with us. And actually, in our home where we live, there's like an inner courtyard, and there's 5 trees, and one of them is dead. Just like they planted 5 trees and one died.
Wow.
And my wife is like, shouldn't we get rid of why do we have a dead tree? I'm like, well, because there's 5 of us. Like, one died, or like died, transitioned, and is not here in the physical plane. And we should not forget that that's true. And then we should not forget that death is always present, not in a bad way. I really appreciate what you shared in your questionnaire. You said, like, that death is there, and that you also write that humanity will collapse, and that it's all beautiful, and that we're here on the ride. And you talk about, we're a drop in the ocean. What is it? What's exactly the line you say? That I'm the entire ocean in one drop. Tell me about that. Was that?
That's by Rumi. Around 2020, 2021, I went through a phase where I was constantly thinking about death. Death of identity, death of self, of family, loved ones, those around me, in the most beautiful and real way. And whatever practice that I did out in the world, either have you done like a sensory deprivation tank, the flotation tanks?
Yeah, love them.
I love those, man. Like, I would go in for 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
And that was actually the first place where I like experienced the beauty of death by fully scanning my body head to toe, because the point there was like to relax, right? And like in yoga, whatever people say, let go, let go of this and let go of that. Okay, let me just scan my entire body. I'm floating on this highly buoyant water that's carrying me. So let me just scan every muscle that I have and just let go, detense. And I do that for half an hour. And then at the end, there's like the best version of letting go is leaving your body for a millisecond, and experiencing that. And I just stopped breathing, and I literally felt like leaving my body, and there's no sense of time and space and distance in there. And looking back and seeing myself, and then like part of my nervous system just like a twitch, and then like I'm back to normal. Like I'm feeling every part. But after just that half an hour just letting go, I experienced just for a tiny little bit of just letting it go. And that's such a amazing space. And even with plant medicine, of just walking into a forest with my good friend, I literally saw the gates of death walking into the forest. That was what my head was projecting. And I kept walking in. I was like, in normal circumstances, normally I would be turning around and running away out of here. Right? Wow. It's scary, and is real. And it's a forest where deer are hunted. So there's a lot of that, and it's pine forest. It's it's the same one thing that has kind of killed a lot of nature vegetation. So there's that visceral element, experience of death that I've kind of been experiencing and navigating through as I went through a lot of my own transitions and like clearing my internal system to create space for the new. And also just intellectually seeing where the world is at. My master's thesis was actually, how can we learn from nature and apply to how we build organizations and businesses and like startup systems? And one of the best findings from that research is how birth and death cycles are a critical element to making rich, thriving ecosystems healthy. And this is purely intellectual, right? And when you apply that and see this human experiment that we have in this tiny little like window of existence that we have. I mean, Earth, this planet has existed for a longer period of time, right? And it'll be there at some point. And I look at our current reality, and I have friends who are obsessed with longevity and never dying. And in their terms, in reality, they mean like just extending the life for a very long period of time. Or we're obsessed with this experience of legacy of like, I want buildings to be named after me so that it can exist 300 years after I am dead, right? Or we draw art or write books, and like we do so much to fight death. We do so much to, like, even children, right? And viscerally, we want to have children so our genes continue, so we don't our lineage doesn't die. Right. So there's so much of that obsession of killing death that we have. But when you really zoom out and say, well, actually, we're part of a much bigger like universe in a scientific way. There's one planet, and there's a galaxy, and there's a universe, and these are all bigger systems. And planets die all the time. Right. And so we're obsessed with like harming even our daily experience in order to like feel like we're extending human life. Even when we talk about climate change, right? It's yes, we love animals, we love nature, we love rivers, but it's ultimately about saving ourselves, right? And let's try to save ourselves. But even if we don't, it's okay, because we're we're a part of a bigger cycle, and accepting that internally. And it's not. I'm not here kind of preaching gospel or like I'm enlightened, right? It's just what I try to remind myself every day. It just allows me to relate to reality, and like I'm in a way that's not attached to a very specific outcome that I envisaged in this moment in time. Like what wants to happen will happen with me or without me. I'm just going along with the ride. And like this dichotomy of feeling like I'm a tiny little drop in this massive ocean, right? And so when a wave moves, it just moves whether I exist or not. Right. But also, as water is, I carry the essence of the entire ocean in me. Like I'm the consciousness of it all. So I'm like super powerful at the same time. And like letting both feelings coexist at the same time is, I find that just part of my active meditation and work. And both have come to be true to me in acceptance of death. Now, when in reality, a close family member, like I've had very close calls, I don't want to accept that. It's hard. It's the most challenging, painful part that we navigate through. So I cannot dismiss the human lived experience. But that's how life is created as well. Life is created when life dies.
There's one of the most beautiful films I've seen is a film called Death by Design. And it was made by a filmmaker whose partner died of cancer. And they kind of were wondering what the hell goes on in the cells and how does that happen? And so he made a film called Death by Design that 80% of it is filmed through microscopes at high speed. And he would do like an cross dissolve between an intersection, overhead shot of an intersection in New York. And you'd see like the bus go by and then the other bus go by and this car and the stop, go. And then slowly cross dissolve to overhead shot of a cell and all the pieces in the cell moving. And you realize it's very similar. The underlying tenet is that we are designed to die to create life. Because the material of the cells that die are then eaten by the materials that are living that gives them growth so that they can grow. And then those cells then die again to get eaten, and it's a recycling of energy. Yeah, my son's been asking me about dying a lot lately. And I've just been calling him transforming. Because I'm like, he's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, okay, well, let's take this ice cube. So I grab the ice cube out of the freezer, put it in a bowl. I'm like, what do you see here? What's the qualities? It's ice, it's touch, it's cold, it's hard. Okay, 1 second. I throw it in the microwave, bring it back out after 2 minutes. I'm like, what's going on here? What do we see? He's like, well, this is hot water now. Soft.
Yeah.
It moves, it's warm. But it's the same thing that was there before, right? What's going on? Like, did it die? Did the ice die and become something else? Or what happened? Then I put it in the thing to boil it and it becomes air. Where's what happened now? And it's like, we don't die, we just transform and we become something different. You know?
Beautiful.
It's like.
And how did he get it? Like, what was his response?
I think my son, well, I mean, shit, I'm straight. My kids are way more intelligent than I am. No doubt about it. They might not have the words. They might not respond in the way, but they are much smarter than I am. I think it's evolution. Like they come out better forms, updated forms of their parents. He got what he needed to get. You know what I mean? Like the universe is at play. He got what he needed to get, and I think it's beautiful what you say about that. And there's a lot of people who want to live longer. Like for me, I don't want to live longer per se. Like I feel like if we live forever, then right now doesn't mean anything. Because when I saw that movie, the movie with
Mhm.
Joaquin Phoenix by Spike Jonze, and that was like 10 years ago, and he's an AI. Scarlett Johansson's the voice of the AI, and he's in love with her, and they're on a date with John C. Reilly, whoever it is, and they're on a date, and then he realizes that on that date, Scarlett Johansson was also on a date with like 10,000 other people, right? Because it's omnipresent, and it could, and it kind of broke his heart, the character's heart of Joaquin Phoenix. That's when I realized that love is an aspect of time, because it's you and I have finite amount of time, and so we're choosing for the last 2 hours to have this conversation.
Mhm.
And we're never going to get that 2 hours back, ever. We'll never get that 2 hours back. And you could have done a number of things in that 2 hours. So could I. But we chose to spend it here with each other. Now, if we both could have been at 5 places at the same time, then these 2 hours would not have meant anything because we were at 4 other places.
Right.
So, like, finite time gives value to the time. And that's an aspect, a form of love, because you're giving your presence to some spot, to some person,
Mhm.
to some entity, to some cause. What do you think life has designed you for?
What
And what
life
have you
has designed me for?
Yeah. And what have you seen? What have you seen and experienced that makes you think that?
I have tried to get an answer for that, but whatever answer I have is a projection of where I am in that space. And a principle I try to live by, is that I don't know. And it's okay not to know. And so, what if I show up to as much of life as if that is what I'm designed for? Like, what if my entire existence is to have this conversation with you, Topaz, and everything else is just background noise? And it's intense, I know, but it's beautiful. And
Wow.
I have seen magic happen in my life, in my world, like things that benefit me directly when I live in that way, instead of orienting the world and life specifically to benefit me by controlling it end to end. Or I have seen like great energy be channeled through me to create things that I would have never thought would be possible, because of that. And when I try to feel like I know, then that beauty disappears. Like when I live my life as if I know exactly, then that beauty, magic, just the sparks of life, the sparks of joy, the sparks of like this almost impossibility becoming real, then they disappear and it just becomes extremely monotonous, and I am very unhappy, and I cannot create things when I'm unhappy or like not fully within my full essence. So yeah, I love not knowing that. And so then, okay, what is then the practice, the work? Then the practice, the work is that of listening and observing, and jumping in, and then see where it goes.
Wow. I do think that's the true leadership of the future, by the way. I think
Why?
that's
Why do you
truly-
think so?
Well, because I have this thing that I do, which is that charades. I'm you've seen me do charades, right? You've seen my
Yes.
skills at charades. I'm like the self-proclaimed Muhammad Ali of charades, but I do have this thing that I think that you can learn about the future leadership skills through charades. If you're really good at charades, then those same skills that make you really good at charades can make a good leader of the future, which is to listen more than you talk. When you're doing charades, you think you're doing all the talking, but if you're really good at charades, you're performing, but you're listening to the crowd because you don't know where the next clue for the answer may come. So you have to be a really good listener.
Mm.
You have to generate energy in the collective. You have to code switch. You have to see, how can I best communicate to these people? Like, they don't need to understand me. I need to understand them so I can communicate to them so that they can then say the word.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing charades and you're like really stuck on only doing it one way and you're upset that they don't get it, which is old school leadership, which is like, you don't get it, you're fired. You don't get it, you're fired. Now it's like, hey, if you want top talent, you got to adjust to them, create the environments for them so that they can contribute, creating the energy. So you have to find what works for each person on the team and you're communicating to them. The other one is, if it doesn't work, pivot. Like, it's not about you. It's about like finding the flow.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm hearing you say, which I think is really being present to the moment and what's a reveal in the moment and how can I show up for what's the moment wants.
Mm-hmm.
And what the moment needs. Which means like, you're not bringing some preconceived notion of like what you're designed for to like, no, you're like, what is the design of the moment and how am I showing up in it fully?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is an incredible leadership style.
Yeah, thank you for putting it and framing it as that. I think it's a goal, it's a target that is never ending, meaning it's not a clear destination. It's a practice. We live in a world, and I have been trained for decades to analyze, understand, predict different things that are happening around us and things that could happen. And that's what like human civilization has been able to achieve so much in the last few hundred years. And is accelerating so much with technology as well. We see it with specific technologies that are coming out with AI or like quantum or like neuroscience or medicine and many, many different areas, right? And we have proven to ourselves, that's what we've done, our capacity to imagine and then manifest that specific piece.
Right.
But the things that are more important below that surface, the part that we haven't figured out and we wouldn't know, is how all these different compositions work with each other and with the bits that we don't know and don't understand, and what type of world and life that will lead us to. We got no clue about that. I think everything else is just as a packaging, right? Because you know how to create beautiful packaging doesn't make us experts in life itself, right? We just know how to create beautiful packaging that is colorful and the shape and that size and whatever. And that's where I see contradiction. I see that contradiction within myself, and I see that contradiction in the world. And I'm happy with it. I'm not trying to resolve it, and I'm happy with that contradiction because it exists. It is real, and I see it every day in my own life and my own work. And I want that type of contradiction to keep existing and living. The I know and the I don't know.
Right. Yep. And I'm participating and I'm letting go.
Exactly.
And I'm shaping and I'm witnessing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Beautiful. Man, you've been very gracious for your time and with your stories and your sharing. I really appreciate it. So good to see you again. So good to chat. It reminds me of how much I miss you, man.
We shouldn't wait many years to do this.
Yeah, definitely not. Wow. Well, give a big hug to Sungi, please. And congratulations.
I will. Thanks so much for this.
I want to thank you for joining me in this conversation. I hope it had some utility. I hope it offered a reflection of what maybe life is shaping you for, and maybe it offered a missing piece to the puzzle of your life. It was a pleasure for me, and I appreciate your time and attention. Please subscribe to our channel so that you can stay abreast of all the new episodes we have coming out. And until next time, thank you so much.
Guts is a Skin Deep media production. The show is produced by Gonzalo Torres Ocampo, edited by Sofia Riqueri, with editorial support from Anthony Cabral, and executive produced by me, Topaz Adizes. Special thanks to all the guests who showed guts, without whom there will be no getting under the skin. Interested in joining our community and following this journey? Visit guts.podcast on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, and theskindeep.com for in-depth conversation card games that create the space for connection, intimacy, and deeper conversation. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, keep having the guts to get under the skin.